But distinguished guests, presidents and vice presidents, dear friends, my mom and Mary and I and our families, thank you for being here to honor the good and great man we loved so much.
Today, in the heart of Washington, some of the most powerful figures in American history gathered under one roof. Not for politics, not for ceremony, but for a farewell. A nation paused as the funeral of former Vice President Dick Cheney unfolded, a man whose influence shaped decades of US foreign policy, and whose legacy remains as controversial as it is enduring. Former Presidents George W. Bush and Joe Biden attended the private service, sitting among dignitaries, national security veterans, and members of America's political old guard. Cheney's family stood together, stoic, as the man who once walked the halls of power at the highest levels was laid to rest. But it was the absences that sparked the most conversation. Neither Donald Trump nor Vice President J.D. Vance attended, a decision that has already triggered political speculation. And they weren't alone. Former Democratic Presidents Barack Obama and Bill Clinton were also notably missing from the guest list or the pews. Cheney's longtime ally, George W. Bush, called his passing a loss to the nation, describing him as a man who never wavered in moments of crisis, even when the decisions he made would divide America for generations. Outside the cathedral, cameras captured the Cheney family standing quietly, offering a final goodbye to a man whose life intersected with some of the most defining and controversial moments in modern American history. But as the service ended, political tensions were already beginning to surface, because in Washington, even a funeral can become a battlefield. For many Americans, Dick Cheney represents a chapter of U.S. history defined by war, secrecy, and unshakable conviction. And inside the cathedral, those themes were impossible to ignore. Former President George W. Bush delivered a brief but emotional tribute, calling Cheney the steady North Star during the darkest days after 9/11.
About a man I was proud to call my vice president and my friend. Though not a happy assignment, I do consider it an easy one, because there was so much to like and admire about Dick Cheney.
He praised Cheney's discipline, his loyalty, and his ability to make decisions no one else wanted to make. But outside the political establishment, reactions were far more divided. Protesters gathered a short distance away, some holding signs criticizing Cheney's role in the Iraq War and the enhanced interrogation policies that overshadowed much of the early 2000s. Others came simply to witness the closing of a political era that shaped their lifetime. Inside the service, national security officials, former cabinet members, and intelligence veterans filled the pews. Those who worked closely with Cheney spoke quietly, some saying he had been preparing for this moment for years, aware that his health had been fragile since his string of heart attacks. Yet even as eulogies focused on his accomplishments, conversations behind the scenes centered on something else entirely. Why did so many major political figures stay away? The absence of Trump and J.D. Vance was expected by some. Cheney had long criticized Trump's influence on the Republican Party. But the absence of Obama and Clinton added a deeper layer to the day's questions. Was it purely scheduling, a political calculation, or something else? And as the motorcades departed and the press packed up their equipment, one thing was clear. The story of Cheney's death was not going to end with his funeral. It was about to shift from remembrance to controversy, because within hours of the funeral ending, Washington was buzzing. A leaked memo reportedly circulating inside the intelligence community suggested that Cheney had been working on something in the final months of his life, something he planned to release after the 2026 election. Sources described it only as a classified historical record. Not a memoir, not a speech, not a policy blueprint, but a record. And according to those familiar with its contents, Cheney believed it would correct the public narrative about decisions he made after 9/11. When reporters asked the Cheney family spokesperson if such a document existed, they didn't deny it. They didn't confirm it either. They simply said, the vice president was a meticulous man. He kept many records. That one sentence ignited a firestorm. Commentators immediately speculated whether Cheney's files included FAA internal White House debates, FAA intelligence briefings never made public, FAA communications about Iraq war planning, FAA classified assessments of threats, private disagreements with both Bush and CIA leadership for supporters. It raised hope that Cheney's legacy might be reframed. For critics, it sparked fear that long-hidden decisions or mistakes could finally come to light. But the most explosive part? Multiple former officials told reporters that Cheney expressed distrust in both Republican and Democratic leaders in his final years, and believed only a future, more stable political climate would be safe enough for his final record to be revealed, a political earthquake set on a timer. And tonight, Washington is left with one overwhelming question: where are Cheney's files now? But here's where everything shifts. Because late tonight, a stunning new detail emerged, one that has the entire intelligence community on edge. According to two senior officials familiar with Cheney's final months, the former vice president did not trust the federal government to safeguard his last record. So instead of leaving it to the National Archives, instead of entrusting it to the Bush Presidential Library, Cheney reportedly gave his sealed files to a private custodian, someone outside government, outside politics, and outside Washington. A single individual, unnamed, unidentified, unreachable. And according to one source, Cheney left instructions: when the custodian believes the country is stable enough, the record will be released with or without government approval. That revelation has set off a frantic scramble. The White House wants answers. Congress wants oversight, and intelligence agencies are terrified of a disclosure they can't control. But here's the chilling part. A second source claims Cheney recorded a video, a final message, to accompany the release of his files. A message no one has seen. A message no one even knew existed until now. And tonight, officials quietly, they don't know when that video is scheduled to appear, or who will be holding the button. Fade to black. The record exists, and it's coming.